Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. So we found out what Mera is going to look like in the Justice League movie and the Aquaman movie, so let's break it down. If you thought that Aquaman was mean, just wait till you get a load of her. So we finally get to see Amber Heard in full battle gear. That's kind of how we've been seeing Jason Momoa and all the behind the scenes Justice League stuff. Like he's always dressed as he's getting ready to head into war, with the exception of that Batman recruitment scene that looks like it takes place relatively early in the movie, where he's just like wearing normal clothes. Then we see him walk back out to the sea, drinking that whiskey, just raising the waves up as if he's going back to Atlantis. But thus far, we haven't seen a lot of the Aquaman movie stuff in the Justice League stuff we've seen so far. And just to be clear, Amber Heard is going to be in Justice League. So this image is a Justice League thing, but obviously she's going to look similar during the Aquaman movie. But Justice League being a big movie about them preparing for war, obviously they're going to be armored up for most of their appearances. We will probably see her out of that armor in the Aquaman movie. But the thing is most of you probably know that Mera is Aquaman's wife, but she's had a bunch of retcons across the comics. Like in Rebirth right now, we've only just met the new version of her because they've kind of retconned stuff again. But she's still with Aquaman, like still very much in love and with Aquaman. But in the comics, usually she's presented as the Queen of Atlantis, but she's also the queen of this penal colony. Like she's actually from this penal colony of exiled people from Atlantis from a previous civil war. So she's one of the leaders of the people from this prison colony trying to honeypot Aquaman, but then she ends up falling in love with him. So the Earth is about 71% water. Aquaman is king of all that, so naturally you have a lot of people that are trying to steal from the king. Steal his treasure, steal his territory, steal his crown. So they haven't really explained where Aquaman's character's at when we get to Justice League, what his relationship with his people is like, but Atlanteans are extremely xenophobic, and one of the big problems with that is that he's half human, so it becomes this big struggle where he tries to win them over. But technically, the crown is his by rights, so it becomes this big Game of Thrones style story where you're battling for the throne. But at various points in the comics, Mera's had like a very contentious relationship with Aquaman, but like they always end up together eventually. But there's the story of them losing their child to Black Manta. Maybe they'll do that in the movies, maybe they'll sidestep that. They've kind of retconned that in the comics right now, and there was that period where Aquaman got his hand chopped off. I don't think they're going to be doing that anytime soon, so you don't really need to read a lot of old Aquaman comics, but Rebirth is actually pretty good. Across the board, Rebirth is pretty good for all the DC characters, but typically what they do before the big DC movies come out is they release like very specific comics that create the context for what the characters are doing. So you can read that and you'll know like what's going on specific to the movie. But it is fun to go back and read some big Aquaman stories. And if you haven't been reading it, I would recommend you check out at least the first issue of Aquaman Rebirth, just so you get a little context for what the universe is like. The issue does a good job of giving you an idea for the scale of Aquaman's kingdom. King of 71% of the earth kind of makes him de facto king of the earth when you really think about it. So naturally, it's really hard for him to keep up with threats, and it's a really complicated Atlantean society that he doesn't fully understand himself. So Mera is usually the person who helps Aquaman deal with a lot of that. So you have to imagine Aquaman having one foot in both worlds. Mera is fully in the Atlantean world, so she has to step up a lot to help him out when it comes to Atlantean problems. But you guys have probably heard this. James Wan is making the Aquaman movie. He's a very noted horror director, so the Aquaman movie is going to have a lot of horror in it. Like you think about a lot of the horrors living in the deep oceans, like the Marianas Trench. So while DC isn't going to make an outright horror film, like it's not going to be like a Freddy vs. Jason slasher flick, there are going to be a lot of scary things inside it, and I think that'll be a lot of fun. There'll just be like the whole gamut of DC films. Like Aquaman's world is so different from ours that I just can't wait to see it in the movies. But let me know in the comments, what do you think about Amber Heard's armor that she's wearing? It looks similar to Aquaman's. They're both wearing Atlantean armor, so of course there's going to be a lot of similarities. But like she usually walks around wearing the crown. Aquaman typically does not wear his crown, so don't be surprised if we do get a moment in Justice League where he actually sits on the throne of Atlantis and wears the crown. But we don't really know whether or not he's actually united the seven seas, so to speak, if he's united his kingdom, and if he is currently sitting on the throne, because it's all been in there. Like there have been times in the comics when he's had to take his kingdom back, but don't expect them to get super bogged down in the politics of Atlantean society. Like, that's probably like the most boring part of it. But just a reminder, rumor mill is saying we'll get that first Justice League trailer around Christmas time. So if we start seeing teasers during November, that lets you know that, yeah, we're probably going to be seeing that trailer. So just be prepared for a lot of Justice League stuff to be dropping in December. But they've been dropping behind the scenes stuff pretty regularly, at least a couple times a month for the last couple of months. So there's just like a couple really big movies that we are in trailer watch mode for. We got Spider-Man Homecoming, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, obviously Marvel's dropping a couple movies later this year, so that's when we'll probably see a lot of that stuff. So a lot of really cool stuff's going to be happening in the next couple of months. But those of you that have been asking, I am planning on doing a Spider-Man Homecoming video this weekend. I need to finish Luke Cage, so a whole bunch of Marvel DC stuff going on. And there's been a bunch of Game of Thrones Season 7 stuff happening, so I'll probably be doing Game of Thrones either tonight or tomorrow. New Flash trailer with Jesse Quick coming tonight. While you wait for that, you can click here for that Justice League behind the scenes trailer again, and you can click here for my Flash episode from this week. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.